I had the pleasure today of talking with the delightful treat-free trainer and all-round animal lover, Wendi Claxton from DeWolf Dog Training. Wendi, like myself, has a lifetime of experience of owning and training dogs after starting as a child with family and neighbours' dogs and bringing home any rescues. So wherever you are, whether you're walking your dog, whether you're at home, perhaps you want to grab a drink of choice, enjoy this frank and open chat about our canine companions. Hello, Wendi. Thank you for coming to see me today, and welcome to the Canine Wellness Room, where I carry out therapies and nutrition for dogs.
Thank you, Toni. It's very nice in here, isn't it?
It's lovely, isn't it? It's my
Calming.
perfect little space. Yeah, we're in a lovely, calm environment.
Lovely.
So, what I'd like to do is introduce the world to your world.
Go for it.
Because obviously you've got a lot of experience, you're well known, you're well regarded. So tell us something about you and how you got into dog training, but anything previous to that.
Right,
Tell us
okay.
something about
So
yourself.
always with animals. I've always worked with animals, even as a small child. I was that person that would knock on your front door and say, "Can I take your dog for a walk?" Which I did. Friends of the family. I mean, not strangers, because I was 10 at the time, if not younger. And at the time, we were talking about this last night. Funny enough, at the time, Barbara Woodhouse was on the telly on a Sunday. I know, and I used to watch that avidly. And then I would practice on these guys' dogs. And I'd go home and as I say, take them home to my house, take them for a walk, and then practice. And over the weeks, these people said, the dogs are getting really much better behaved at the moment. And they never knew what I was doing, because nobody's really interested when you've got a little kid taking your dogs for a walk. And I used to love it.
Yeah.
And then it was in that era that you don't, I suppose, lots of people did want to do dog training, but not to the volume that you've got nowadays.
Yeah.
And so it never occurred to me to actually make that. I wanted to be a game warden in Kenya.
Oh, did you?
I love the sun. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
To wear shorts all day.
Yeah.
So forget the animals.
Feed elephants or something.
That's
Lovely.
it. Big game. No, yeah, big game.
Yeah,
And anyway, so that didn't happen, oddly enough. But then I kept the dog side going and worked with wildlife of all sorts of different types, mainly waterfowl, set collections up, and then got headhunted to do a few things. And then sort of about just over 20 years ago, we took on a rescue dog, and the person whose rescue it was only up the road from us, a place called Ark Rescue.
I know, yeah.
And we then got involved. We felt bad that we didn't pay much for our rescue dog. We could have paid more, obviously, but we didn't, because that was it. And so we felt bad. And so we went up and spoke to her and said, do you want to make some more money for the rescue? Let's do dog training. So every rescue dog then gets free dog training. She thought that was a great idea. And over the course of a few years, we raised an awful lot of money doing that. Every penny went to ARC. Sadly, the lovely owner, Diane Wilson, whose charity it was, passed away. So we then had to split all the money to different charities. And we thought, well, let's just keep going with dog training. So we rebranded ourselves as DeWolf, and that was it. And now my passion for raising money for charity is still there.
Yeah.
So every year we have quiz
and
nights, and
things,
we do some charity walks and stuff like that. So
cycling,
basically everything cycling we did that for cancer. Basically everything you're wearing I would have off you and then sell it to somebody in class for charity. So don't sit still too long. So that's sort of that's it, and that's the passion with the dogs. And it's sort of weird how it becomes that, doesn't it?
It's really interesting, because I started exactly the same way. We had a Jack Russell, because we're about the same age. We had a Jack Russell.
Was it rough haired?
No,
and we had the rough haired one.
She used to want to bite everything. So postman's ankles, my dad's bum, but my mum used to pick her up, stick her under her arm. So I was only about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I'd been watching Barbara Woodhouse. I didn't necessarily like all her ways, but thought, oh, so you can teach dogs that. And we used to live in a little cul-de-sac. So I used to walk around this cul-de-sac, teaching it to sit at every time we got to a curb, it had to sit. We weren't walking over until we walked over. I trained this dog, and
Yeah.
very similar to you, the neighbours
Yeah.
you see. It's next week I was out with an Afghan,
Yeah.
age 6 up
Yeah,
here.
up there.
Right, I'll teach
Yeah.
this one
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's a very similar.
It is, and I used to rescue dogs that didn't need rescue. My mum would say, "Oh,
Or our house
yeah,
always had rescue
yeah."
dogs.
There was one dog, Prince. He was a rough collie. He was beautiful. Every week I'd rescue Prince, and my mum would say, "Just stop! He doesn't need rescuing." Somehow I'd find Prince and take him home, and we'd have to get in the car and take Prince back to his house. And there was one time we had it was a Labrador, and we had to take it to the police station. You could take dogs to police stations, and that,
or pet shops,
or
sadly.
pet shops, yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Do you remember pet shops?
No, I remember pet shops having dogs,
with the puppies
definitely,
in
the
the window?
windows.
Oh.
Well, how much is that puppy in the window?
Oh.
But this dog went to the police station, and that was probably my first great compliment as a youngster, and I was really young then. I handled this dog better than the policeman. It was a police dog person, and there was I don't even know if it was the dog we were taking in. There was some other dog, and he said, "Oh, blimey, you're good at handling the dog." And anyway, that was that. So again, then I never thought, well, let's get into the dog world, because I was so fixated in. It was watching Born Free. I wanted to be out in Africa.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, understand that.
And it just sort of then things happen. I suppose you follow a route in life, doesn't it? And
things sometimes just come your way, don't they? I think if you've got a passion and a flair for something, sometimes, I mean, I went off into corporate world for a long time, but in the background, I've always worked with wild animals.
Yes.
I've been to Kenya 2 or 3 times.
Well done. Yeah.
Done
I've not
a bit
got
of work
there
with
yet.
animals.
No, I've been to Gambia, not Kenya.
So I just think the path comes back again.
It does,
doesn't it?
It does.
Because you never quite lose A, that skill, or B, that passion for it.
Actually, talking of Africa, we did go to the Gambia, and I went actually with my mother, and of course I rescued something, didn't I? And we were on a safari, and I rescued a bloody huge, great herring gull type creature. And we had this in the Jeep with us the whole day, and we had to stop for lunch. And it was, well, who's looking after the bird? And it was the most hilarious thing. And everybody got involved. There were, I think, half a dozen of us in the Jeep, and the huge bird. And we got it back to the hotel, and we met the local ranger. He'd been radioed to help, obviously, bloody English tourists.
Coming
rescued
back
a bird. Well, it was in
the souvenir
from the beach. It was on the beach, but it was being attacked in the water by. It couldn't have been a shark. It was something large, and it was being attacked. And I waded in and scooped this bird up, and everybody would think, that double take. Oh, she's got a bird. And as I remember, it was just huge, and but it was hilarious. So this bird had a safari day. But when you go on a safari, you're not meant to actually bring it back, are you? You look at it.
It's not the intention. You're supposed to think wildlife where you find it.
Yeah, don't put it back in the Jeep.
But that's how the rescue's set up out there, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's how they start.
Yeah, they were grateful actually, and they did say thank you for doing that, because it would have died and it did need rescuing.
Yeah.
So because my mother was none too pleased about it. It was like, oh, can't you just stop rescuing things?
When I went to Borneo, I just wanted to rescue everything, because it's so, the devastation when they're just taking all the trees down. So of course I went to where they've got the orphan orangutans, and I'm just like, I want to come work here. I don't want to have to wear a mask all day. I just come and work here. That's fine. So have you ever got involved with people like International Animal Rescue?
Now, I haven't got involved other than the owner, because they're fairly local. The owner came over and met me. I was doing a car boot in Polegate, and he trotted over and bought some CDs that were for sale, I think, or DVD. Anyway, whatever. He was chatting about that, and so we had a long old chat there. It was a few years ago.
Because they do some lovely work.
Yeah. So they're just up the road, aren't they? Yeah. And we looked at them as one of the people to raise money for when we do all our charities, but we do like to keep it to the small local, because I know once you put international, it's people get funny when you're raising money, but then you've got to rely on the people that are giving you the money that you're raising are happy to give you the money, because otherwise you won't get it if they go, it's a bit too international.
Of course, and it goes to the right place, etc. You're not paying for the big wigs at the top, getting lots of money. Which they need, because you do need that experience and knowledge. People don't understand it.
But, you need that tiering system. So
coming back to your dog training, when was it you realised you prefer treat-free training? Because obviously you and I both treat-free
trainers. I don't think Barbara Woodhouse did treats.
No, I don't
and
remember her doing
when
treats.
we first did training, we had a Jack Russell, and it's a little broken coated because I was never allowed animals as a child because I'm highly allergic to animals.
Oh,
It's
you're in a
ridiculous.
good,
I'm
good
yeah,
career.
all the scratching of the neck and everything, and so we had it normally takes a death. So my dad died. So again, replace your father with a dog.
Yeah.
Most people do that,
Yeah.
don't they? So then I was then encouraged to take that training, and having done, had Barbara Woodhouse on the telly for all those, however long it was, we then went to a dog training group. I was the youngest there, and it was in a field, just and it was really good. And again, there were no treats, so the like the non-treat thing seems to me so natural.
Yeah.
The treat training to me just feels alien purely because you're just adding things that if you do it correctly, you then start taking them away. So yeah.
So you take them away, don't you? And for me, the reason, I mean, I've tried all sorts of training over the years with different rescues just to see what motivates them. And behaviour is different. Obviously, if you and I do behavioural consults, you would treat behaviour differently. And that's something people don't understand. They're just like training. It's like, no, there's behaviour and you have to reset some of the behaviour. Sometimes you may have to use some sort of reward. But for basic training, you shouldn't have to keep giving treats. And from my point of view, looking at nutrition, that's the other reason I started looking at nutrition. Because I was watching all these allergies. And for me, the worst thing I think is you're on a walk and a dog sees you go like this to your pocket to bring out a tissue, and suddenly you've got a whole forest full of dogs around you because they think you're giving them a treat.
Well, exactly. Or
and you lose your dogs to people.
You lose your dogs
because
to
they
people.
will give your dog a treat, and you don't know what they're being fed.
No.
And
And again, the allergy thing is so big at the moment.
Huge. That's a big core
and people
of my
need to, like you're saying, from your point of view, with your side of the work, people need to know what they're feeding their dog because it's so easy to get it wrong. It's almost easier to get it wrong with all the made-up foods than it was years ago when we gave our dogs scraps. When we gave them scraps from our table, proper scraps, not like half a pizza, but when we ate better.
Before the 70s when it all got
when
it was jammed.
Exactly.
First pizza.
Yeah, and what was that? What was that in a bag? That curry in a bag with rice. Do you remember those curries in a bag? Oh, anyway,
the boil one.
Yeah,
boil
in the bag, but it was
and it used to smell the whole house out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Revolting.
Anyway, but you could feed your dog well with proper scraps, and proper meat and stuff like that, and part of the family, the dog didn't get a high sugar diet.
Yeah.
But then now we've got our high sugar diet, and then
I mean, I remember my dad saying, and I remember this when I was young, actually, because obviously people used to just undo their door. The dog used to go out.
Yeah.
They used to go off to work, and their dog would come back tea time. So the dog was out scavenging all day or picking up whatever it was picking up all day because there wasn't, the bags of McDonald's paper on the floor.
No.
Other brands are available.
No,
of course,
other brands are available to throw on the floor. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
There wasn't the rubbish.
And you also, and that for socialisation was how dogs got their socialisation. You didn't hear about dogs fighting.
No.
Ever.
No. Well, they had more exercise. When the owners got up, the dog got up. Quite often you walked to school and the dog walked to school with you, and your mother or father or whoever it was turned around and walked home. So that's quite a decent dog walk.
Yeah.
And they weren't pampered because you had busy lives. Yeah. They were left at home and not cosseted. So they were left, and the time that they were left, maybe if anybody went shopping, that was their proper sleep time.
Yeah.
And then when anybody came home, people were often a bit too busy to make too much of a fuss of the dog. So they were far less important. And they had more exercise, better food, which was low value food in so much as good quality, but not high in carbs and sugars and such like that.
Yeah, not the
and once it turned, I think it turned around about the 80s, because it's the yuck factor. I was talking about this to the niece. One of our nieces has got a new little Christmas puppy, and but give them her due. She's taken. I sent them a book, not one I've written, obviously, but they sent them a book, and for their present and a bed and such. And they were trying to find some training, and they said we can't find anywhere that doesn't have treats, and we don't want treats. We don't want the dog looking at the pocket. We don't want the dog running over to people, jumping up. Little dogs obviously jump up, big dogs jump up. But also the other thing is, if you're going to keep giving your dog something while you're out on a walk, you're going to drop a percentage of that on the floor. And then another dog's going to come up, and it might then be spoilt food, or it might have been lying there for a while. If it's kibble, I mean, it goes off, it gets sour, and then your dog comes along, snuffles around and eats it. So they can then get ill. Or if you've got that allergy, exactly,
they could be very allergic to it.
So one of our dogs that we lost recently, she couldn't have kibble, and if you gave her a biscuit, she'd just cough. So in actual, she was brilliant because she had to have natural feeding. She had to have raw food because she couldn't eat anything else. So, but if she found a biscuit or something out, obviously, why wouldn't you? They're nice and anything, and then she'd be coughing and spluttering all over the place. So.
It is really hard, and you're right about food on the floor and everything else. And of course, you've got this thing about people poisoning dogs. So what you're teaching to me, in my mind,
especially
it's
fairly recently to here, local to here,
very local around here, and to particularly people use sausages and things because that's what people are putting, you know, the pellets, poisonous pellets and things in, which is not obviously a dog gets that, and that's
and so if you're teaching your dog, you've got food on you, it might drop on the ground, they can eat it, etc., etc. when you're out. So you're teaching them there's a source of food out and about. They're going to look for it, and as you say, that's how.
And I think my experience, certainly behaviour things as well, is dogs don't differentiate about this is yours because I'm treating it, and this is actually our food. And it's they become so food, and particularly some of the dogs are foodie anyway. They become so foodie that everything becomes. And that's when you start getting your guarding issues. And I want to own that.
Yeah, exactly. So you can have a right old fight on your hands just because you've got pockets full of chicken, sausages, cheese, the lot. So and the value of it changes because you might start off with a low value biscuit. And by the time, you know, within a month or so, that's lost its value. So the trainers then suggested, well, you go up and up and up, and in the end, you're on chicken and all sorts of things. And
roasting,
exactly. And one of our lovely trainers, before she became a trainer and she was struggling with her dog, she then went into training, and her trainer and behaviourist kept saying, well, that doesn't work. And she said, I was going out with half a roast chicken. And she said, I'm vegetarian. I don't want half a roast chicken in my pocket. And she said, it wasn't, the dog was quite happy eating it, but it had no impact. And all that was doing, other dogs were coming over.
And
so,
instead,
but.
And it will never, and the other thing, because it never helps that chase, because obviously the biggest thing for people is recall. And, you know, how many times I have, well, my dog I cannot get 100% recall. Well, there's lots of dogs that haven't got 100% recall.
Exactly.
Because there's still this natural instinct. It's so inbred in some dogs. They will always
you've got
be prey driven or something.
Exactly. You've got to look at the DNA of the dog, the type of dog you've gone out and bought. It might look pretty, it might be popular at the time, but is it a sensible dog for you? Does it fit your lifestyle? And I think that again now, when we were younger, there were obviously the breeds were out there, but the breeds that most households had were because it probably reduced down to what, half a dozen or so at the most. But now we have the most.
I can't remember how many breeds are now. I think it's like 400 or something ridiculous. It's gone. You know, when I was young, it used to be you had a Jack Russell, or you had a Labrador, or you might have had something elegant. I mean, you know, the Afghan I was walking because she was into craft, so she had an Afghan.
We had an Afghan.
And red setters were quite popular for a while.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, and I don't think they were as bonkers as they are now. They were a bit bonkers, but not too mad.
And actually, funny enough, Dachshunds were in because they're now back in fashion, obviously. But the miniature ones are in fashion now, and that was the full. And they seem to be, but it's everyone had Labradors or Retrievers. They were the main things because they were easy to, or just actually mutts.
More mutts.
And they had such lovely personalities.
But I think their lives were busier, weren't they? Because and also kids played out more. Kids weren't, you know, being sent off. Demelza wasn't taken to her drum lesson. That she's never going to do drums when she grows up. But they were. I mean, we as kids, we never had after school activities. It was taking the dogs out and or being at home doing your homework. So I suppose there was less. it was all a bit quieter as well. I think.
So, and all this stuff goes into trends. So you have all the trends of the dogs and the dog breeds, and then you have the accessories for dogs. And then you start off with, Barbara Woodhouse Day was a check chain that everyone used to call the choke chain. Actually, it was a check chain, wasn't it?
Chain,
it was that
check the dog.
It was that just to get the dog's attention. Exactly. It wasn't pulling at the dog, but people obviously misused it because they didn't understand the check.
Or have it on the wrong way round, and
and then you got into the normal thick leather collars, and then harnesses came in. And I know you don't train harnesses, and I don't train harnesses either. And lots of people still say, though, can I have my dog? And they'll bring them in to train on harness. Why don't you train on a harness? Is there any particular reason why?
From my point of view, and again, going back to why people have harnesses, a lot of people say, well, I've got a small dog and it, if it pulls on the neck, and you think, well, train it not to pull on the neck. So we've got Yorkshire Terriers at home, which are probably one of their health traits is collapsed trachea. And so therefore, if you work them on a collar and lead, they're much more but they haven't. So we have all of ours, and they're all rescue, and we don't put any of them on a harness. They're all on a collar and lead, and they all walk beautifully. Thank you very much. We did have one, I think it was our first Yorkshire, who, funny enough, started life on a harness, but never pulled on the lead. She actually got a collapsed trachea, and we had to have her put to sleep, and it was horrific. But it wasn't anything to do with, I think she just had a collapsed trachea. She never pulled on the lead, so it wasn't through your test. Yes. Probably looking up like that all their life. Who are you? Who are you? But from the harness point of view, again, people think they get very hooked up with, and again, it's pet shops. Pet shops want to sell you something, which, fair enough, it's a business, but think about what you're selling to the people in the first place. So harnesses generally, once they touch here, they teach the dog to pull. The other thing we see as a problem with harnesses, so a dog would come into class, and we had this, it was very evident a couple of years ago. Somebody brought a lovely little black Cocker Spaniel into class, and its elbows were literally tucked out like that. And they walked around class, and we said hello, and they didn't say anything about a harness, and we said, oh, do you normally walk your dog on a harness? So she said, oh, yes, I do, but I know you don't like harnesses. And I said, well, I'll walk your dog around, just have a look at its legs. And I said, see if you can see anything. So when we pointed out the elbow flip, oh, she said, oh my goodness. She said, have I caused that? So we said, yes. So she felt awful about it. But it's the harness they take, because a harness will probably different types of harness there are out there. And I know there are some rescues that will say, to start with, put your dog on a harness from a safety point of view, that and a collar and a lead, virtually everything you can find, put it on your dog, because they can be a flight risk if they're a very disturbed dog. So that's another thing.
That's back to a behaviour thing again. And there's harnesses. Obviously, harnesses were designed for dogs to pull.
Yes.
So it was the dogs that used to pull the barrels. It's the dogs that now do canicross.
Exactly, and search and rescue.
Search, rescue.
And the police dogs and the guide dogs. They have to be that bit of in front of you.
But they're specially designed
to do that
for
job.
That activity.
Exactly,
and
they're made for that activity.
Yeah.
They're not something that you get in a cheap shop that looks like a harness and does a bad job on your dog.
And that elbow thing you say about pulling there, but it's also as well, if you look at harnesses, they've all got the plastic clips. Here, so it'd be like us as women wearing a bra, with something sticking there. We spend all our time walking with our arms doing this.
Exactly.
And it does. And obviously, when I'm doing my muscle manipulation, that's what I'm resetting.
Exactly. You must see a lot of it in your line of business.
And the other thing with harnesses, I've noticed, and I don't know whether you have, is because they're pulling at the front, the power's coming from the back. You get the curvature of spine with the dogs, and the dogs with hip dysplasia are taking in all the pressure. Obviously, I'm not a vet, so I can't. I don't diagnose.
But then you know what you know, and
then you speak to a vet, tell the person speak to the vet, could it be this? And you just see common things coming through. Doing these things.
Yes. So I'm not a lover of harnesses. I think they're unnecessary. When you get your puppy, you don't need a harness. You just need to put the effort in. Collar and lead, slip leads. We love slip leads, and they work well. But I think a lot of it is down to us not really putting the amount of effort in that we should.
And what about the snub-nosed dogs? Because that's the, I can't remember what the full name is.
Brachywatsit, yeah.
The people really worry with those because of their thickness, the neck, and because you know,
Again, all the little
design of them.
Again, a lot of the little Frenchies that have come to class, they've all collar and lead. You know, again, it just, if you're going to get one of those dogs, instead of worrying about them, if you're going to worry, don't get that breed.
Yeah.
Or get that breed, do your research and just do it properly.
Yeah.
One of our trainers has taken on a new rescue dog, and that's an American bully. And you can tell he's been brought up, he was a youngster when she's had him 5 months now or something. Yeah. And he was a youngster, and you could tell when, as soon as he walked into class, his elbows were out like that. And she said, mercilessly treat trained in rescue, and prior to that, and mercilessly walked on a harness. And it's taken her 5 months solidly to get him to, he walks beautifully on a just a slip lead, and not be so focused. If you got American Bulldog, a big hunk of a dog that's mercilessly treat trained and sees you've got food, you might have a tiny dog that you're giving food to, and this thing comes barreling in because he's think food. That's going to give that dog a bad name for no reason other than the fact he's a big dog and he likes the food that you've got because somebody thought it was a good idea to treat train him.
Do you think rescues use treats as a quick fix?
Undoubtedly.
I think people see treats as a quick fix, don't they?
I think they do, and undoubtedly there is that thing we like. You know,
we want to give, we want to love.
How many times as a kid did you go and feed the ducks? You know, it's something that we like feeding things.
We like nurturing,
yes, and we like the response that an animal might give you if you give them something. And I suppose the rescue, it's trying to tell the rescue dogs that the hands are kind, they're not there to hurt you. So by saying these hands are kind, here's a bit of food. All the rescues we've had and got now are quite damaged by people. So even if you've got food, they don't trust you because then food is used as a lure, and they won't come anywhere near you because it's a lure and a grab, or it's it's one of those poles with a what's it on, and so therefore that has the opposite effect. They think you're up to something. Oh, what have you got? And I get why rescues do it, but I don't think it's as necessary as they think it is. And people get terribly over focused on it.
And all the new lots of the new training courses are all about just treat training.
Well, the guide dogs for the blind, and we've got one of our trainers is used to do the training in the guide dogs, and they've taken on 5 guide dogs. They're not blind, but they've taken up 5 guide dogs from puppies up to quite advanced stage where they've then gone on and done really good things, and they've come out of it now and quite a few of the people have come out of it because they said it's so treat orientated they just can't cope with it. It's all, and you're seeing now, so the dog that they've got now that they use as a demo dog with us is so focused on food, he just drools and drools, and it's it's such a shame.
It is.
So, and he doesn't. I mean, his training with us is absolutely impeccable to the point that clients say, "I'd like my dog to be like that." And she said, "Well, you can have that exact dog, but you just got to put the effort in. It's not a special dog, but it's a dog that's had an awful lot of good quality training put in it."
And of course, with training, it's all about being calm and being consistent. You know, we don't all stay calm. We're all human and have our moments of going, you see your dog's going to do something really mad or bad. But the other thing is, as well, you know, as well as treat training, there's always things now about adverse training going on. And people seem to have lost that understanding what adverse training is. It's now like you tell your dog, no, that's adverse training. You mustn't tell a dog no.
But you don't tell children no anymore, do you?
Yeah, but that's a correction.
Yeah, it is.
It's not adverse training. You're not hurting it. You're not damaging it. You're not mentally abusing it.
No, I know.
It's a correct. So
they've got to know. I mean,
everything's blurred to me. Everything's blurring. It's all getting very blurred, and people are very judgmental now. On actually, you know, well, I mean, I've had people come to my lessons and like, well, we don't want to tell it no. And it's like, well, yes, you can treat it like lots of people do with children and just keep rewarding the good behaviour, but it's still got it still has a blurred line, and if this is I said, because what if it's dangerous?
Mm, mm,
You know, I try and put everything back to
yeah.
people of this. If you don't do that, it could be dangerous because. To try and put it back into
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah,
it's very
yeah.
difficult, I think.
I mean, your dog is just about to. We say this at class that if you've got to know, you've got to be able to sort of, again, yes or no with your dog. So, and again, if you train your dog, if you do so, let's say, for instance, you've got a jar of peanuts in a glass jar on the side, and your dog is used to peanut because people use peanut butter on licky mats and all sorts of things, and I never have, but I know people do. So the peanut jar has fallen onto your kitchen floor, which is tiles. It's broken. So the dogs will then smell peanuts. They'll run into the kitchen and try and eat that. So how are you going to stop it taking a mouthful of glass as well? Um, and it's so important that the training is about the bigger picture. You eat your food out of the bowl. You don't have anything else. You don't. When we don't give you anything else, there's no tidbits. You don't lick the floor. You don't, because again, licky mats. Then eventually, does that mean I can lick the floor?
Yeah, you give something off the floor.
Yeah. So, and if you absolutely bawled at your dog as it's running towards your glass infested floor, glass and nut infested floor, you yell no, my dog would stop.
Yeah.
And I could save my dog's life with that. But if you're not going to teach it yes or no, but they're clever creatures, but they're simple in so much as it is yes or no.
Yeah.
I mean, in the wild, if a young dog went up to an adult and did something, the dog would go, and the dog would go, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then it'd be waggy tails, all right, mate?
Yeah.
And that would all be fine. They don't hold grudges, but it's that explosiveness that you need for the dog to go, oh, all right. And then happy voice. But we've had people say that how is what we do positive reinforcement? And you think, well, of course it's positive reinforcement. So we've said, you're a marvellous dog, well done.
Yeah.
So, and that's yes, that's no. It's black or white, yes or no, always or never. And it's so simple.
It is.
But people want to seem to make it complicated. So, and then dogs get stressed, and then that's where you come in, because a lot of your work is around stressed dogs. And they're either stressed nutritionally and they get problems, or stressed physically, and they're all tense like that, or stressed emotionally, and you get those three things. And if those three things aren't catered for, it's almost impossible then to you can't train the dog if you're fighting against those other things. So the whole thing is very convoluted, and it's the whole package, isn't it? Really,
it is. Yeah.
So
and as you say, to me, I try and explain. People say, about the yes and no's, and I just say, dogs are literal. Teach dogs if it's literal. If you, they'll understand in the moment. They obviously they're going to remember bad memories, but it's in them. They live for the moment, which we don't, because they haven't got the same brains as us to be overthinking things. And because you see people, I said you can't reason with the dog because they don't have a reasoning power.
No.
If you show them that's going to hurt you and this is going to be nice. In a nice way, and it is in a positive reinforcement.
It's like people say, "Oh, my dog knew I was upset with it," and you think it's read your
energy.
without
doubt, they
feels the energy. It's read your body language. So if I came, or if you came over to me and I was in an absolutely foul mood, you could read the fact I was in a foul mood. So you might come in sort of, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Sort of a bit softer.
Yeah.
Thinking, I'll just tread carefully here because I can see she's in an absolute stinker, and I don't want her to have a pop at me because I haven't done anything. And then you come in like that, and that's what dogs are doing. They see the owner comes home, and the dog sees the owner go, shoulders go up. You can see the sort of pursed lips and the cross voice, and the dog ears go down and they slink about. And people say, "Oh, that dog knew that it had done wrong." And you think, well, not really. It knew that you were cross about something. So self-preservation kicks in. They make themselves small because even if you're the kindest person in the world, they've still got self-preservation issues. They know they can go straight back to sort of their wild mentality. Hang on, that person looks a bit wild and scary, so I'm going to make myself tiny, and I'll go all dobby ears and eyes, and then that might soften you. You might forget whatever it is I've forgotten I've done anyway. So, but as far as they're concerned, any damage, household damage, as far as they're concerned, an alien came down and did it. Nothing to do with them. I don't know how that got shredded.
Yeah.
So
Don't know how that
no,
like, puffy stuff
extraordinary.
got all over the floor.
And they looked around, did it come from there? I came back yesterday and Knuckles had emptied some dog bed, and I said, "You've done it again," and it's like, "Done what again? What? Oh, don't know where that's come from." And even then, you know, you just have that look, and she goes like that because she's read your body language.
Yeah,
and I wasn't cross in the slightest. I do actually think it's quite funny, but they know. They just
they read us far better than we ever read them, because they have to read us.
They do. That's their whole life, is about reading things.
Yeah.
So, but you know, even if you think you're not cross, you are, because they've read the fact you're a little bit pissed off about
and
the
the
whole
other thing
thing.
is with their sensors, because obviously they've got
Smell it.
400 million sensors. They smell.
They smell
the
anger.
whole of
whole thing.
They smell all the chemicals change.
Yeah.
They're very quick to.
Exactly. And people don't always get that either. People say, "How does my dog know this and that?" I mean, they're a 24-hour clock. They've got like
them.
a 2-minute window with it, and you think, how can they know that 24-hour clock? But they do. Yeah. And that,
that's been proven. I was reading something actually the other day on that. That's been proven down. Dogs know the time to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That's how accurate they are with their time.
Exactly.
That's why they start asking you about your dinner. And they get used to rhythms. But some experiment, I can't remember who was doing it, some scientist somewhere. But 12 and a half minutes.
Amazing, isn't it? Really?
It's fantastic, isn't it? Really?
It is good. Yeah.
So it is all about sense of smell and everything else. So what about COVID?
Well, that was
that was an interesting time, wasn't it? And the impact on. I mean, you hear lots about COVID, people got dogs to do with it. I don't know if that was all COVID, but there was definitely a pattern of people like, I'm home now, I can have a dog, and now they've been made to go back to work.
And I think that came from, funny enough, I think some of it came from social media, because I think a lot of these people weren't thinking of getting a dog, and somebody somewhere said, the trouble is people are getting dogs in lockdown, and somebody thought, and it's a bit like how we hear things and how we think. They didn't hear the trouble is people again. They heard dog lockdown. Oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that. And just because some of the rescue centres were absolutely empty.
I know.
And now, was it the Dogs Trust? They had 45,000 inquiries last year to take my dog back.
Yeah, I have a lot of people just come to me and say, "Oh, Tony, I can't get a rescue. None of the UK rescues will allow me to rescue something because I haven't got the right garden, I haven't got the right fence, and they won't even let me look at the dogs." And I'm like, hang on a minute, you've got to go back to what the position of the rescue. The rescue is inundated with people now wanting to give them the dogs. They've got to be very careful who that dog goes to. And that's why rescues try to match people with the dog, because they know they've got to understand that dog and what the needs probably are.
It's difficult, isn't it? And then people want now, they want that button to press, and if they can't get now, that's when they're then going abroad and getting inappropriate dogs, because the dogs generally coming in from abroad are herding, guarding dogs. They're either herding and guarding, or herding or guarding, and monstrously great big fluffy things that people can't cope with. And or street dogs that were actually quite happy on the street.
Well,
thank you very much.
Isn't it?
And that gets me a bit, because they're enjoying life, and then somebody scoops them up, brings them to our country, shoves them into East Sussex in a hot house, and they've got no friends left. You know, half of them were in.
Take them out their society and their pack,
and they might have been a low-ranking member in the group. And then they can't cope because nobody is above them in the household, because nobody's assumed that position to be the high-ranking person. So then that puts them in a state of chaos. Or they're a high-ranking dog come in and they're trying to run the joint, and people then get scared of them because they don't know how to react in them. It makes me so sad, because there are policies out in some countries where they spay and castrate and put them back out on the street, and they worm them, and they do all the medication within food, and they look after them. And in actual fact, then that community will just eventually get less and less and less, and then either die out completely until somebody then releases another dog into it. But it probably never die out completely.
But it's a manageable. And it's a happy community because it's what they know.
One of our girls, she went to Turkey and she said, I've never seen such healthy dogs. And she said it was lovely. All the dogs knew. She said you could walk around of a day and you knew on that corner you'd see that dog. And and you hear of all these tales of, was it in Russia, where they get on the bus or the train and then they go into town and then come out of an evening.
Have you seen that video of the school bus with all the dogs on?
Yeah.
That is
just it's so good.
What a lovely thing. They're all on there, they're all social, they all know where they're going, they all get on their bus, sit on their seat, go off for the day, have their day of whatever they're doing, daycare. Best day in the life, and come back and sleep all the way back again.
I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it?
That's what we need to run in Sussex.
We need a dog bus. There you go. That's it. It'll be purple and pink. They're coming through your village today. So it's the COVID to some extent. We did quite well in COVID because lots of people got dogs.
Training really went up. You saw lots of new trainers appeared that seemed to not be around. That's some of those now.
So suddenly everybody, all the accountants thought, I know I'm going to be a dog trainer. And so you got a lot of that, a lot of dog type stuff. And then now it's sort of tipped off again because it's finances, isn't it? People, given the choice, they're not going to spend money on training their dogs.
Well, it's not the priorities; their families are their priority, and I do get that.
I get that, definitely.
I get that, but it's very difficult.
But a lot of these people have just got inappropriate dogs that they're just managing, and they were young dogs. They needn't just manage them; they could have actually trained them and trained them well. But now, and I mean, the cockapoo thing had just got ridiculous to the point that they became one of the most bitey dogs out there. Because they're a clever little working dog, with both two parts are working, both the spaniel and the poodle, and they weren't given anything to do. So they were resource guarding because they're little flushing dogs. So they've got something and they don't want you to have it, and people weren't understanding that and getting bitten left, right, and centre.
Well, because if you ask a lot of people with cockapoos, why do you get the cockapoo? The first thing is because I have allergies and they don't shed.
But they do.
So you don't think about the mental side.
No, exactly. No, it's about them.
About how they look, and that's suitable for me. And they forget the dog actually has a need and a purpose as well.
But the stupid thing is, there are pure breeds that don't shed either. That they could have just got one of those, which would have been far less trouble than and the poor chappie who made the Labradoodle, who first designed it deliberately for a reason because of the non-shedding, but they don't all non-shed. You have to get the right gene line,
and some of it's not actually the fur, is it?
It's the dander. Which is what I'm allergic to. Certain breed types. Funnily enough, my biggest allergy is boxers, staffies, chocolate Labradors. Is the dander of those. There's something in them that's mule to scratch. But it is that it's the need of us. We don't think about the need of the dogs, and I think COVID was good in some respect, but I think it didn't do the dog world any good because the puppy farms where we get our dogs, they are all ex-puppy farm breeding bitches, and the guys that we talked to said that the puppy farms, as a result, then have overbred. The forecast is, I think they were forecasting 2 years ahead. Wow. And they've bred.
And now there's nowhere to go, hence. And the thing is, and it's only this week I was reading about puppies being dumped, even quite local to here.
Really?
So puppies being dumped. We're going back to that. There's a phase of that probably 20 years ago, and I don't know why. I always remember seeing, I was driving down the motorway and I saw someone pull over in their car and dump this dog.
Really?
So as you can imagine, I immediately pulled over.
Did you pick it up?
I picked the dog up,
well
and I knew someone was working rescue, and I got it put to rescue.
Well done.
And those days you didn't have the mobiles.
No.
So, but it was just, he literally was driving along, pulled over and threw the dog out the car. It was a young puppy, just threw it out the side of the motorway.
How could you do
I don't know how people do that. But I think people are getting desperate. Rescues are absolutely full. They can't rehome to another person.
They can't
so
take.
What do they do with this dog?
What do you do with it?
Can't look after. What do they do?
And vet bills. It's a luxury item. People say it's my right to have a dog. Yes, it is your right if you want to look at it like that. But what about the dog's rights, which is what you said a few minutes ago? And I believe it just has become a luxury item now. And the likes of you and I like to have more than one dog because it's healthy for the dog, to have its mates, and we just like it. So, and then we're crippled financially because of all these dogs.
Well, and time and
Yeah,
socially
time.
and everything
Yeah.
else. They're a huge.
Oh, do you know,
huge
yesterday
commitment.
I spent the whole day pretty much dog walking because of the different needs of the dogs. I've got a completely deaf-blind one that I can only walk her with one other one.
Yeah.
So I do her late at night, but then sometimes it's nice to go out and have some daylight on you.
Yeah.
And then I've got a lunatic, and she's better just on her own. And then one that doesn't like gunshots, so you can't go to a certain place at a certain time because you know the bangs are going to go, and you just think, oh gosh, life used to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, and I used to walk 7 dogs, and none of them pulled. They all behaved well. They all came back when they were called, and that was one huge walk a day, and the rest of the day was my own. But now I'm all over the place, just with less dogs, but with more needs.
Which is very similar to me last year when I had my old boy who could hardly walk. He was really, really ill, so I was doing round the block with him.
Yeah.
And then I had my young puppy that could do the same time but had different speeds, same breed.
Yeah.
So then I was having to walk him on a different walk and then take the 2 older girls out because they could do much further.
Yeah, yeah, mad, isn't it?
And it's interesting because yes, I train, but it's changing the dynamics. Like where they all used to walk in a nice line, they don't anymore.
No,
I've got all sorts of things going on now, and I have challenges like other people, but I work on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the difference.
And again, ill health. If you have days when you don't feel great or something's twinged, and you've pulled something, the dog picks up on that.
Yeah.
And that can change your dog walk as well.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So many things buy into your dog's into your dog's psyche. Yeah. So there we go.
So just to finish off, so you obviously train mainly up in which areas are you covering?
Well, we cover East Sussex. I mean, we go anywhere really, but we're mainly East Sussex. So we go sort of Wadhurst out that way. Is that still Sussex? Yeah, I think so, isn't it? Wadhurst right round to Crowber, Uckfield, down. You have people come up from Rye. People come from all over the place, but generally sort of Uckfield, Crowborough, Newark. I suppose a circle round that way.
You've got like a radius round.
Yeah.
And how many times do you train in a week?
So we train a couple of times a week, and then some extra stuff. So we have what we call Sand School now, which is learning about. It's open to people at the moment, generally that are in class, but it's learning about recall within chaos. So you have all the dogs off lead, charging around. Can you call your dog out from that? So it's about learning about play and the dangers of play. Because unsupervised play, it's the same with kids. A push becomes a shove, becomes a kick, becomes a punch, and these day and age becomes a total stabbing. But with dogs, it was fine, and then it just got a bit like that, and then the next thing it's all get off me, you hurt me, you nudged me, woof woof, and then who are you saying woof to, and off we go. So we've got a lovely 3-legged lurcher, and she just goes round in circles in one direction and then falls over. And we've got some great dogs. It's very interesting watching them interact, but it's about saying that, can you start this game, but can you also stop it? And it's being able to stop a game, which is the most, because so many people say, oh, I just want my dogs to have fun. Well, it's not really about that, is it? Because yes, they want fun, but what is fun for a dog?
And yes, you want them to have fun, but it's understanding that whole behaviour and body language, is it, to know, because it changes.
Oh, it changes in a second.
Blink of an eye.
Absolutely.
You watch it change from being slightly dominant fun to it just spills over into aggression, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do that, and that's quite fun. And we do companion walks as well. So that's helping people out with sort of out there walking.
Which is something I'm going to try and introduce more down to this area.
It's a good thing to do, and then you're sort of in the field and say, well, watch your dog, it's doing that, call it in, and more heel work is more difficult. So to show people how you can perhaps get a better heel when you're out. So yeah, we do lots of slightly different things, but the main thing is obviously it's all about basic obedience. Yeah. And if you can't get that, the other things just sort of fall aside, and what you put into your dog is most important as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Through the mouth end.
Absolutely, inside out. My
Yeah,
my
yeah.
theory, as you know, and what I
mm.
work towards is the
Yeah,
inside out.
yeah.
So if the body's good, that will help balance everything else, which
Yeah.
makes the training easier,
Yeah.
which keeps them mobile, because mobility, stress is all held in the body. So like humans and dogs, and dogs will emulate humans. Have you seen that? There's another video out about that greyhound, and the man's hurt his leg.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And the man's limping,
Yeah,
the
and the dog
greyhound
has
limps, and the
limp.
man's
Yeah.
leg works right, and suddenly the greyhound works
Yeah.
right. And he spent
Yeah.
thousands on this dog
Yeah.
trying to get this dog
Yeah.
cured, but
Yeah.
he just
Yeah.
was emulating what he thought the
Yeah.
behaviour was
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
wanted on the walk.
Yeah.
So they're quite, but they're unique, aren't they? And they're quite, and
Yeah.
you need to get into their psyche a little bit.
Yeah. So
But they generally they want to please. If you
they
show
do
them
want
the
to
right
please.
direction,
Yeah.
they'll please.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be as difficult as people seem
No.
to think it is,
Yeah.
but you've just got to put the effort in,
Yeah.
put the time aside to do it. There is no button that you
So
press.
get the food right, get the training right, and keep mobility
Yeah,
healthy.
yeah, and
you've
if
got a
they're
happy
healthy
dog.
and happy, they're easier to train. But if they're stressed and their food's tormenting them because they're on stupid food, it's all gluing their head up, or they're in pain,
Yeah.
they're not going to be in the best frame of mind, and they're much more likely to be snappy as well. And let them sleep as well. They need an enormous amount of sleep.
Some of the puppies, people just don't understand. Like my puppy's going to it's like it needs to sleep. It's gone beyond tired, and it can't deal with how it's feeling.
It's just completely overstimulated, and it'll bite then.
Yeah.
So there we go. So much just
So
in owning a dog.
I know, and so much more to talk
So
about
much
on another
more.
time.
There we go. Look forward to that.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe below and follow us for more information on social media.